Okay, the next sutta is the fourth sutta, Bhayabherava Sutta, fear and dread. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Natha Pindika's park. Then the Brahmin Janusoni went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side and said, Master Gotama, when clansmen have gone forth from the home life into homelessness, out of faith in Master Gotama, do they have Master Gotama as their leader, the helper, their guide? And do these people follow the example of Master Gotama? And the Buddha said, that is so, Brahmin, that is so. When clansmen have gone forth from the home life into homelessness, out of faith in me, they have me for their leader, their helper, and their guide. And these people follow my example. But Master Gotama, remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest are hard to endure. Seclusion is hard to practice, and it is hard to enjoy solitude. One would think the jungles must rob a monk of his mind if he has no concentration. Stop here for a moment. So here, Janusoni is asking the Buddha whether his disciples follow the Buddha's example, and the Buddha says yes. And then he says that remote jungle places, forests, secluded places, staying there is very difficult. If a monk has no concentration, he might go mad or so. This shows that the Buddha and his Arahant disciples spend most of their time in the forest, secluded, away from people. In the Vinaya books, the Buddha said that before he was enlightened, he used to live like a forest deer. Forest deer, they always go away from people. If they see a human being, they run away. So the Buddha said he used to be like that. He lived in the deep forest. He see any human being come, quickly he run away. And then he sleep in sometimes, in what they call charnel ground, where they throw the corpse. In India, they used to throw the corpse in the jungle for the animals to eat. So he'll go and rest there. He'll collect all the bones, use as his pillow. So he was so secluded. So his disciples also practice a bit like that. And the Buddha said, that is so, Brahmin, that is so. Remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest are hard to endure. Seclusion is hard to practice, and it is hard to enjoy solitude. One would think the jungles must rob a monk of his mind if he has no concentration. Before my enlightenment, while I was still only an unenlightened bodhisattva, I too considered thus. Remote jungle, thicket resting places in the forest are hard to endure. The jungles must rob a monk of his mind if he has no concentration. I considered thus. Whenever recluses or Brahmins, unpurified in bodily conduct, resort to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest, then owing to the defect of their unpurified bodily conduct, these good recluses and Brahmins evoke unwholesome fear and dread. But I do not resort to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest, unpurified in bodily conduct. I am purified in bodily conduct. I resort to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest as one of the noble ones with bodily conduct purified. Seeing in myself this purity of bodily conduct, I found great solace in dwelling in the forest. I considered thus, whenever recluses or Brahmins, unpurified in verbal conduct, unpurified in mental conduct, unpurified in livelihood, resort to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest, they evoke unwholesome fear and dread. But I am purified in verbal conduct, in mental conduct, in livelihood. I resort to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest as one of the noble ones, with conduct and livelihood purified. Seeing in myself this purity of conduct and livelihood, I found great solace in dwelling in the forest. I considered thus, whenever recluses or Brahmins who are covetous and full of lust, but I am uncovetous. Whenever recluses or Brahmins who, with a mind of ill will and intentions of hate, dwell in the forest, but I have a mind of loving kindness. Whenever recluses or Brahmins are overcome by sloth and torpor, but I am without sloth and torpor. overcome with restlessness and unpeaceful mind. I have a peaceful mind. Uncertain and doubting, I have gone beyond doubt. Given to self-praise and disparagement of others, I am not given to self-praise and disparagement of others. Subject to alarm and terror, I am free from trepidation. Desirous of gains, honors, and renown, I have few wishes. Lazy and wanting in energy, I am energetic. Unmindful and not fully aware, I am established in mindfulness. Unconcentrated and with straying minds, I am possessed of concentration. I consider thus, whenever recluses or Brahmins, devoid of wisdom, frivolous, resort to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest, then owing to the defect of their being devoid of wisdom and frivolous, these good recluses and Brahmins evoke unwholesome fear and dread. But I do not resort to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest, devoid of wisdom, a driveler. I am possessed of wisdom. I resort to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest as one of the noble ones possessed of wisdom. Seeing in myself this possession of wisdom, I found great solace in dwelling in the forest. I'll stop here for a moment. So, the Buddha says that if somebody is impure in body conduct or verbal or mental conduct, and has a lot of defilements, covetous and anger and hatred and sloth and torpor and restlessness and doubt and all that. If they go and stay in such places, they will become frightened. This fright is not due to anything outside, it's due to the defilements inside. Years ago when I was in Thailand, I also practiced a bit like this. And we went to stay near the Burmese border, a few of monks from Wat Pananachat. And we agreed that we'll live far away from each other, don't see each other. So far, even if anything happened to you, you shout also, nobody will hear. That was done on purpose, so that we have to have this experience. Then in the middle of the night, sometimes because that is border area, it's full of the jungle, forest, sometimes we hear the sound of these animals, and hear the sound of tiger and all that. And then you can have a bit of fear. But when you have this thought that you have come here with a pure intention to practice, and your sila is pure and all this, it gives you a lot of courage. So the sincerity is very important. I consider it thus. There are the specially auspicious nights of the 14th, the 15th and 8th of the fortnight. Now what if on such nights as these, I were to dwell in such awe-inspiring, horrifying abodes as orchard shrines, woodland shrines and tree shrines? Perhaps I might encounter that fear and dread. And later on such specially auspicious nights as the 14th, the 15th and the 8th of the fortnight, I dwelt in such awe-inspiring, horrifying abodes as orchard shrines, woodland shrines, and tree shrines. And while I dwelt there, a wild animal would come up to me, or a peacock would knock off a branch, or the wind would rustle the leaves. I thought, what now, if this is the fear and dread coming? I thought, why do I dwell always expecting fear and dread? What if I subdue that fear and dread while keeping the same posture that I am in when it comes to me? While I walked, the fear and dread came upon me. I neither stood nor sat nor lay down till I had subdued that fear and dread. While I stood, the fear and dread came upon me. I neither walked nor sat nor lay down till I had subdued that fear and dread. While I sat, the fear and dread came upon me. I neither walked nor stood nor lay down till I had subdued that fear and dread. While I lay down, the fear and dread came upon me. I neither walked nor stood nor sat down till I had subdued that fear and dread. Stop here for a moment. So the Buddha says on these Uposatha nights, the 8th night, the 15th, the 23rd and the 30th nights of the lunar month, those are auspicious nights. Those are the nights that the four great heavenly kings, the devas, are supposed to observe humans. So, especially in India, these are the nights or the days that they keep the precepts, the 8 precepts. So the Buddha went to fearful places. These are the shrines. These are the places where people pray to the spirits, the tree spirits, ground spirits, and all that, what we call Datokong. So those places where people pray to spirits, it is expected then there should be a lot of spirits around. So the Buddha, he purposely went to such places to see whether to experience it. And then this fear would come upon him. Now this fear is very natural for everybody to feel fear. As long as you have an ego, as long as you have a self, there's always the fear that somebody may want to kill you or take your life and all that, or harm you. The only person who does not have any fear is the Arahant, the liberated person, the enlightened person. He has no more self, then he has no more fear. Otherwise, everybody else would have some amount of fear. So the Buddha said when fear came, then he just observe. I had this experience once. I stayed in a cave, and every few nights I'd hear this sound like a ghost calling, and I couldn't go anywhere. So the only thing to do was to watch the fear. You see the fear going up to a certain limit, and after that it goes down. If you repeat this several times, then you know that you can only go up to a certain amount and then it come down. So once you get used to it, then it is not so horrible anymore. Whatever is unknown to us, we are frightful. But after you have experienced it a few times, then it becomes something that you know, it's less fearful. There are Brahmins, some recluses and Brahmins who perceive day when it is night, and night when it is day. I say that on their part this is an abiding in delusion, but I perceive night when it is night, and day when it is day. Rightly speaking, were it to be said of anyone, a being not subject to delusion has appeared in the world for the welfare and happiness of many, out of compassion for the world, for the good welfare and happiness of gods and humans. It is of me indeed that, rightly speaking, this should be said. Tireless energy was aroused in me, and unremitting mindfulness was established. My body was tranquil and untroubled, my mind concentrated and unified. Quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, I entered upon and abided in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thought directed and sustained, with delight and pleasure born of seclusion. With the stilling of thought directed and sustained, I entered upon and abided in the second jhana, which has self-confidence and singleness of mind, without thought directed and sustained, with delight and pleasure born of concentration. With the fading away as well of delight, I abided in equanimity and mindful and fully aware, still feeling pleasure with the body. I entered upon and abided in the third jhana, on account of which the noble ones announced, he has a pleasant abiding, who has equanimity and recollection. With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous disappearance of joy and grief, I entered upon and abided in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure, and utter purification of recollection, sati, and equanimity. When my concentrated mind was thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, I directed it to knowledge of the recollection of past lives. I recollected my manifold past lives, that is, 1 birth, 2 births, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 1,000 births, 100,000 births, many aeons of world contraction, many aeons of world expansion, many aeons of world contraction and expansion. There I was so named, of such a clan, with such an appearance, such was my nutriment, such my experience of pleasure and pain, such my life term, and passing away from there, I reappeared elsewhere. And there too I was so named, of such a clan, with such an appearance, such was my nutriment, such my experience of pleasure and pain, such my life term, and passing away from there, I reappeared here. Thus with the aspects and particulars I recollected my manifold past lives. This was the first true knowledge attained by me in the first watch of the night. Ignorance was banished and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished and light arose, as happens in one who abides diligent, ardent and resolute. When my concentrated mind was thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady and attained to imperturbability, I directed it to knowledge of passing away and reappearance of beings. With the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, I saw beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate. I understood how beings pass on according to their actions thus. These worthy beings who were ill-conducted in body, speech and mind, revilers of noble ones, wrong in their views, giving effect to wrong view in their actions, on the dissolution of the body after death, have reappeared in a state of deprivation, in a bad destination, in perdition, even in hell. But these worthy beings who were well conducted in body, speech and mind, not revilers of noble ones, right in their views, giving effect to right view in their actions, on the dissolution of the body after death, have reappeared in a good destination, even in the heavenly world. Thus with the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, I saw beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate, and I understood how beings pass on according to their actions. This was the second true knowledge attained by me in the second watch of the night. Ignorance was banished and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished and light arose, as happens in one who abides diligent, ardent and resolute. When my concentrated mind was thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady and attained to imperturbability, I directed it to the knowledge of the destruction of the asavas. I directly knew as it actually is. This is suffering. I directly knew as it actually is. This is the origin of suffering. I directly knew as it actually is. This is the cessation of suffering. I directly knew as it actually is. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. I directly knew as it actually is. These are the asavas. I directly knew as it actually is. This is the origin of the asavas. I directly knew as it actually is. This is the cessation of the asavas. I directly knew as it actually is. This is the way leading to the cessation of the asavas. Asavas means uncontrolled mental outflows. When I knew and saw thus, my mind was liberated from the asava of sensual desire, from the asava of being, and from the asava of ignorance. When it was liberated, there came the knowledge. It is liberated. I directly knew birth is destroyed. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more coming to any state of being. This is the third true knowledge attained by me in the third watch of the night. Ignorance was banished and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished and light arose, as happens in one who abides diligent, ardent and resolute. Now Brahmin, it might be that you think, perhaps the recluse Gautama is not free from lust, hatred and delusion, even today, which is why he still resorts to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest. But you should not think thus. It is because I see two benefits that I still resort to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest. I see a pleasant abiding for myself here and now, and I have compassion for future generations. And Janaswani said, indeed, it is because Master Gautama is an Arahant, Sammasambuddha, that he has compassion for future generations. Magnificent Master Gautama, magnificent Master Gautama. Master Gautama has made the Dhamma clear in many ways, as though he were turning upright what had been overthrown, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, or holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see forms. I go to Master Gautama for refuge, and to the Dhamma, and to the Sangha of monks. From today, let Master Gautama remember me as a lay follower who has gone to him for refuge for life. That's the end of the sutta. So here you see, the Buddha says that he went to stay in the forest and he practiced very hard. His energy was energy, tireless energy was aroused in me. So he refused to sleep. And unremitting mindfulness was established. This one, when people talk about satipatthana, this is the meaning of satipatthana, unremitting mindfulness. That mindfulness that does not stop, that does not run away. That's why I translate this satipatthana as intense state of recollection, intense state of mindfulness, but a specific mindfulness, not general mindfulness. So, you see, like the Buddha, at the age of 35, he was enlightened. So he practiced so hard that the whole night he didn't sleep. So, if you want to become enlightened, the chances are better when you are young. Old guys like us, it's harder to practice, how to keep awake the whole night. So the Buddha said because of his strenuous effort, he attained the 4 jhanas, and after he attained the 4 jhanas, he recollected his past lives. This is very important because in his last life as Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha did not have access to the Dhamma. So he was ignorant of the Dhamma. But when he recollected his past lives, then he realized that a long time ago, he was a monk disciple of the Buddha Kassapa. Then all the Dhamma that he had learned from the Sammasambuddha came back to him. That is why on the third watch of the night, he used his knowledge of the Dhamma, the 4 Noble Truths, contemplated on the 4 Noble Truths and attained enlightenment. It's mentioned here. So without that knowledge of the 4 Noble Truths, even he had attained all that psychic power, he could not have become enlightened. It was the knowledge of the Dhamma, that is the Vipassana part. The 4 jhanas are the Samatha part. You need both. Then only he became enlightened. So at the end, the Buddha says, after enlightenment, the Buddha still always stays in the forest. And the Buddha said, just because I stay in the forest, I don't think I'm not enlightened. The Buddha says, for 2 good reasons, he continues to stay in the forest, just like Venerable Mahakassapa said. One is pleasant abiding. Pleasant abiding means he's very comfortable being alone. When an ascetic is used to being alone, he likes to be alone, not disturbed by other people. People always like to talk. So that's because a person has attained the jhanas, the mind inclines towards seclusion. It doesn't need anybody to talk to. The mind is giving all that bliss, all that happiness. So when he talks to somebody, he has to get out from that state, you see. That is dukkha. It refers to abide in the jhana. So that's one reason. The second reason is he has compassion for future generations. He's trying to teach future people like us that the way to enlightenment is to stay in the jungle. Not like the Vimalakirti Bodhisattva going around the karaoke joints and the gambling joints and all that. So that's the end of the sutta. We have covered 45 minutes. I don't know whether we have time for another. I don't think we have time for another sutta. So we stop here.
He was already at the post of Sakadagami, and one was already at Sakadagami, already at the right way, but he had ceased at Sakadagami. And thinking that he is often afraid that he can remember that he has to be born again, and he needs to remember what we have learned in the past of his life. But he has to try so hard in order to get back to the original teaching of some previous Sammasambuddha. I mean that the form of it's not an easy thing also.
No. He has forgotten everything. He has to make a lot of effort to recover that Dhamma that he learned before. But then because he has already become an Arya, he goes along that way automatically. He gives up everything to strive. So if a person is not an Arya, he would not likely to put so much effort, give up so much. After they are finished, they are not really practicing hard. This is their natural state to abide in jhana. Every day they abide in jhana because it gives them a lot of happiness. If they come out of the state of jhana, they are in the world of the six consciousness, the six senses. The world of the six senses is a suffering, world of suffering. So they prefer to abide in jhana every day. It's natural for them, they don't have to make any effort. Their mind inclines into that jhana. So they don't want to come and mix with society, because when they come and mix with society, people want to talk to them, reporters want to interview them, they have to go here, go there and all that. Then they cannot abide in jhana, which is so blissful. You have to understand this fear, how it works. When you hear a sound that you have not heard before, or you see something that you have not seen before, because it's unknown to you, the fear arises. You think that it's a threat to your life and all that. And then the fear increases when you start thinking about it. It's called the proliferation of thoughts. You start thinking. So the simple way is, when you think any fear is arising, is to do some chanting. Chant Namo Tassa or Arahang, Arahang, Arahang. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. Like that. You keep chanting. You put your mind to do something so that it does not start thinking all the unwholesome thoughts. That is one way. Another way is to observe your fear. Fear is a feeling, right? So this feeling or emotion, the fear, it arises, rises. So you watch it rising, watch it rising up to a certain limit, and then it will stay there for a while. Then later it will slowly come down. So the point is to make your mind do something. So watching your emotion or your fear is also making your mind do some work, so that it doesn't think. So of course the best protection is to have a strong samadhi. If you have strong samadhi, anything happens, the mind doesn't move so easily. Resting on solid foundation. Initially, for everyone, when you start going to live alone, because you are not used to it, you will experience fear, and small things also give you fear. But after years of experience, you learn to ignore it. It's like sometimes, like I stay in my kuti, I hear some sound outside. If I start thinking about it, you start speculating. Is it a robber? Is it a ghost? Is it a tiger? Is it a panther? All this. So after years of experience, all I do is I just ignore it. If I want to sleep, I just go to sleep. Because if you think about it, then especially something happened a few months ago. I was in my kuti in the middle of the night, about 2 a.m. I heard a big rock hit my kuti, from the outside. The big rock. So I thought to myself, what could it be? Could it be a robber? He wants to check whether I'm inside the kuti. Or is it because he's angry with me? Or could it be that somebody using black magic to make the stone fly and hit my kuti and all that? So later I decide, no point to think about all that. Just ignore is the best. If I go outside, it might be dangerous. So I just continue my sleep, no problem. So the same way, sometimes I stay in a cave, I hear some sound or so, I just ignore it. You have all kinds of experience. Last time I stayed in one cave, in the middle of the night, I have a very nasty smell, some like a hungry ghost go by, very smelly smell. It's something unusual, must be at this hour of the night, 2 a.m., must be a spirit or something. Of course, if you start thinking about it, you have the fear. You just have the thought, may you be well and happy. You walk your way, I walk my way, don't disturb me. No problem. Okay, shall we transfer it?